Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another Tuesday in the Bitchuation Room. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. So happy to have you here. So happy you pressed play. So happy you decided to hang out with me for the next hour and a half or so. We've got such a good show. Comedian Mateen Stewart is back. Very excited. We're going to talk about all the important news items like people being stuck at Burning Man, especially just like I don't know, I've just funny people. It's because the people who go to Burning Man now are just kind of clowns in and of themselves. No disrespect. I hope everyone's safe. I hope everyone. I know there was a death. We still don't know what happened. But anyway, there's some funny people, including a Fox News anchor who was at Burning Man. I guess that slipped out because the right has some thoughts about why Burning Man was inundated with water, and so we'll get into that. Also, Dark Brandon rises, although he's good, but he's bad. But he does things. Joe Biden is moving forward with the Inflation Reduction Act and finally trying to negotiate prices on 10 prescription drugs. What are the 10? Did your fave make it? Your fave blood thinner? Holler at me in the chat. No, it's really good news. We're going to talk about that. Biden getting a little spicy ahead of the elections, and that just means a mild pace picante sauce that you get at Safeway. Like that's how spicy our president can get. But of course, we will, I guess, take it and we'll run with it. And then, of course, back at the border, Professor Carlos Martinez, I think he goes by professor. Can I call people professor? He's an assistant professor. Whatever. They're all professors to me. Carlos Martinez, friend of the show, actually was on the very first Bitchuation Room ever. And we are almost going to hit our 200th episode. So Carlos has been busy. While I've got just the same show, he's like an assistant professor at UC Santa Cruz in Latino studies, and he's done incredible work, specifically looking at U.S. border policies and a lot of the scaremongering around migrants. And so we're going to dig into some of that as we've been kind of on this kick lately. So stay tuned in a little bit. And then, of course, we're going to end with some fun what would you do news items. A few interesting things happened. Radioactive fish were eaten. Senate leaders froze on camera. We're asking, what would you do in these situations? Mateen is going to stick around with me for that at the end of the show. And then remember, y'all, this is not the only show. In fact, Fridays, it's a bonus bish, me and all the stories that we didn't get to on Tuesday. Last week, we talked about the head of the Spanish Soccer Football Federation kissing the scoring goal striker of the U.S. women's team, the Spanish women's team. You know what I'm saying. You guys remember. Anyway, it was fun. Got to whip out a lot of Spanish. It was silly. It was ridiculous. If you're like, where can I watch this? I want to see that. You can become a patron, patreon.com/bitchuation room. You can watch back. You can listen back. If you just want to stay on YouTube or Twitch, you can also become a member. And then you get access to not just the current bonus episode, but all the previous bonus episodes. But look, I'm funneling everybody to Patreon. That's where the cut's the biggest, people. All right. Google, ye old Google, not as kind. That being said, I'll take it where I can get it. And just thank you. I had my members drawn up and now I lost them. But thank you to Andrew K. and Marcus Aurelius, who rejoined as members on YouTube at Becoming Frangirls. Hell yeah. And also, if you want to tip the show, TBR-Live on Venmo, TBR Live on Cash App. You can always do that. And if you become a patron at $10 or more, or you're a big tipper, or really any tipper, I'll give you a shout out in the fart song. You know what it is. You know how we do. But right now, I think before I get into the whole shebango, you got to know that Matt Lieb and I are going to be in San Francisco on October 17th at the Punchline Comedy Club, co-headlining on a Tuesday. So I think I'll do the show and then we'll have the the in-person show later on. So it'll be good. It'll be a very packed night. Carlos has a fun story about trying to come to see me do stand-up. Maybe he can share that a little bit later. But with that, you guys, let's get into it. I'm super ready to bitch. This is What Are You Bitching About? So Elon Musk is a white supremacist. How many times, how many breadcrumb trails, how many things is he going to do to just like, before we're like, yeah, he's a Nazi. He's definitely, like what does he need to do to prove to us that he very much believes that like the media and corporations, except for him, are run by a cabal of, Jewish, like evildoers, like Soros paid Jews and his friends. And they, orchestrated Black Lives Matter and all yada, yada, yada. But let's stick with the anti-Semitic stuff because that seems to be his flavor. And that's the thing that he likes. And lately, he's decided that the massive flop of the takeover of X, vomits a little in mouth, that the fact that it's failing is not because nobody wants to be on a platform where there are rabid anti-Semites, misogynist, a-holes, weirdo conspiracy theorists, and that like gay people and women and people of color have basically fled the site to like, I don't know, TikTok or anything that's semi less heinous. And that, the blue check marks were one of the more like interesting parts of it because you could see who was actually even stupidly but semi-anointed by society to have an opinion about fucking anything. And I say this as a former blue check haver, which, I don't tweet that much. I don't have that much to say on Twitter. But I at least like to know who maybe like has a credential. I don't know. Got rid of that, made it not fun at all. It's none of that. It's not that he's limiting our tweets. It's not that he's screwing with the entire algorithm. What else has happened that we've hated? It's not all that. Why don't we just now blame the Jews? Hell yeah. Let's just tap that rail. Why not? So his latest thing is getting mad at the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. And so over the weekend, he freaked out about how we have to hashtag ban the ADL. And then all the Nazis were like, yeah, we should ban the ADL. Now, as a progressive, as someone who stands with Palestinian human rights, let's be real about the ADL. They have consistently conflated criticism of Israel with criticism of Jews and being anti-Semitic generally, which, as we all know, is not the same thing at all. And anyone who says it is and conflates it is probably an anti-Semite, as evidenced by the interesting fact, that Elon Musk then later this week, just today, tweeted about a documentary that sort of like has like a critical look of I think one of the ADL members, but specifically through the lens of like rabid pro-Israel policies that have no room for Palestinian human rights or discussion of the occupation or anything. And he tweets like, interesting. It's like, no, bro, you like it because it's critical, because you just hate Jews. That's actual anti-Semitism. But anyway, so he, of course, this has been fun. He's decided that actually it's the ADL and them basically calling out the fact that there are now Nazis just completely running amok on this platform. And so he's now saying, to clear up our platform's name on the matter of anti-Semitism, it looks like we have no choice but to file a defamation lawsuit against the Anti-Defamation League. Oh, the irony. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. And the best part about that lawsuit is that, one, it's never going to happen. And two, as proof, all the ADL has to do to say that this is an unsafe platform that should not be a go-to for advertisers, which is what he's mad about. If I buried that lead, he's mad about the ad revenue. All they have to do is look at the replies and everyone being like, yeah, triple parens Jew. Like, it's really bad there, guys. It's like 4chan bad. And especially if you're Jewish or you have a Jewish last name. It's incredibly awful. You can't tweet anything without anyone being like, oh, you would like the Renaissance tour, Jew. What the fuck? Like, that's what it is now. So anyway, here's what's annoying to me. The last thing I'm going to say is that somehow the issues that like even Jews stand with, which is Palestinian human rights, somehow criticizing Israel gets conflated with broad white supremacist anti-Semitism, the likes of Elon Musk, right? The likes of Alex Jones, the likes of Nick Fuentes, Yiannopoulos, I don't know, name them all, Donald Trump, the likes of the toppling of Jewish headstones at Jewish cemeteries, the Tree of Life massacre, like all of these things gets put on an even playing field. And you're like, I mean, we feel crazy at the end of the day, right? It's insane that that the bigger enemy is so clearly white supremacy. And yet the left and progressives are the ones who get called anti-Semitic, and a fucking billionaire Nazi is allowed to take over one of the biggest social media platforms there is. Okay. No, that's cool. He just has like a massive platform now, but that's fine. I mean, it's the same thing with Donald Trump. Heaven forbid a socialist get into the White House. Heaven forbid. We much rather have fascism. So much safer. Good for business. I mean, at least there's clicks, there's eyeballs. So this is the one instance, or, one of the instances where I definitely stand with the ADL. And I'm just like, I don't even know how Elon gets away with all this shit. And mind you, I haven't even dug into the Ronan Farrow article. I know this is wrong of me, but it's just like, it's kind of like it's the thing you don't want to look under the hood of. And it seems that the reality and the takeaway of the Ronan Farrow article is that Elon Musk is far more powerful than just owning one of the biggest social media platforms there is, although small in comparison to the others. It's that he actually has a lot of cachet within the government. He gets a lot of subsidies through SpaceX and Tesla and whatnot. And he is, again, far more powerful and has been treated like an official, a diplomat, a part of the government. This is what we do, people. This is what happens when we can't have anything nice in this country. We get Elon Musk. Anyway, that is what I'm bitching about. And with me to bitch about, turn on your camera, my friend. I'm going to camera whisper to Mateen. Cut this out for the podcast. He's a comedian born in Detroit and living and performing in LA. You may have seen him on HBO, Jimmy Kimmel Live, or Adult Swim. He hosts the show Late for Work at the Hollywood Improv Theater. Go see him when you can. Please welcome Mateen Stewart.
What up, though?
Mateen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. It's been a long time. I'm really happy to have you back on the show.
Yeah, last time I was here, you didn't have a baby.
I know. So long ago. Shit. Mm-hmm. Too long ago. Yeah. She's 11 months like this week. And I'm many, many more months than that this week as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. How are you and your baby?
Oh, we're good. She's good. She'll be 2 in a couple weeks. Actually,
she made an appearance on this show.
Yeah, because I had to I was being a dad while I was trying to do this. But no, she's at daycare right now. So
yes.
We're
same
safe.
with mine.
Yeah.
Guys, all new parents out there, daycare will come. And then it will be good. Things will be, but not for a bit, but it will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And yesterday was a day off, and we're like, oh God, what do we
What are we
do
gonna
with the
do?
kids
Yeah,
all day
yeah.
long? But Mateen, what are you bitching about this Tuesday? It's been a while. What are you bitching about?
Um, I don't. I'm bitching about a lot of things. But it's so funny. The things that I want to bitch about are the things that we're actually going to talk about today.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see.
But I'm bitching. I'm gonna bitch about my fantasy football team. I'm a little mad that the players that I drafted are upset. They're hurt. And I don't know why I take that personally that they're hurt. Like you guys need to be playing for my fantasy football team. Okay. So
Right. Right. This is not, I don't know anything about fantasy football, but it's not like dreams where if you die in the dream, you die in real life. This is
n-
real life that
this
then
is
you've created a dream off of.
mm-hmm.
And when they get hurt in the real world, they do also get hurt in the fantasy world.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is.
That's
Look at
messed
you.
up.
Yeah, yeah. And you take it so personal. It take it so personal that these guys are like not playing because your fantasy football team is going to suffer, not because they're injured or their family's worried about them. It's kind of weird, but it's also something I've been doing for so long, and it's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
such a interesting part of my life, especially when it's football season, which it is right now. So
Is there money involved?
yeah, there's money involved. Yeah.
How much? Like a couple
So
thousand?
no, so like
500?
no, my teams. I have a couple. I have like 3 or 4 teams that I play with. So you like each one is anywhere
Thank
from
you
like
for
100
clarifying that I play with,
that I
like
play with.
action
Yeah,
figures,
yeah, yeah.
not on.
So it's like each team is like $150 to like $250 per team.
Okay.
So and then
So
you
that's
compete all season, and then
right.
you can win prizes. So
What about your bench? Don't you have like a bench you can pull people up
I
if
do,
they're
but like
injured?
your bench is not your bench is like just like a fill in this when they're have a bye week. Now you don't want to be playing your
But
bench
so
because they're
then,
hurt.
okay, so it's nothing but numbers and stats that determines whether or not you win the league. You don't like sit face to face like a tabletop game situation and like roll
No, so
dice.
you plug in your players, and then your players accumulate points on the day that they play, and then
I
you're
see.
going against
Depending on
another
their
team.
performance that day.
Yeah, so like each different stat has a different point that they get or whatever. But then you go against another team head to head, and then you win that week, whoever has the most points, and then you do that for 13 weeks, and then there's a playoff, and then yeah.
I
But
feel
none of
like
my
I don't want to ask too many questions because it'll start to like. But so that's the problem is if your benched players, the players you're bringing up, aren't actually playing in the real world, then how are you ever going to accumulate points?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You have to plug and play. So like I have Travis Kelsey who got hurt today in practice. So I'll have
Oh
to find
shit!
someone to replace him. But if Travis Kelsey's gonna give you 20 points, you're not gonna find another tight end to
That's going to
give you
give you
20
20
points.
points. Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. This is how I feel about like I am into football or soccer, and I think maybe this is the only thing I'm like, why are you injured on some dumb shit, which is always the hamstrings? Why don't people stretch their fucking hammies? This is my thing.
Yeah.
This is like who is my favorite? If El Fideo, what's his name? You guys, everybody help me out. The Argentine player. But anyway, he would always injure his he'd be out, and the hamstring is such a dumb injury because it lasts for way too long.
Yeah, and you can't do
And
anything without it. It just feels like you have a knife in it.
yes.
Mhm.
And yet, I feel like if you just stretched it a little, but I know it's more complicated than that. But just stretch your hammies. Everyone should right now. Do it.
Stretch them hammies, baby.
Stretch your hammies. I'm that old lady that when I go on like walks or like I'm in the airport or something, I'll like find something to stretch my hammies on and just sort of lean in, like an
do
old
you
lady.
do you ever lift? Do you lift weights or anything?
Wow, thank you for even asking me that question. No,
No,
I
because I have a machine at the gym that you can use
to stretch.
the legs curl. No, the leg curl to strengthen your
Ooh.
hammies.
Oh yeah, it's all about strengthening too.
Yeah,
I forget about that. No,
yeah.
I've skipped leg day for years now actually. All right, well let's get into the week because there's plenty more to bitch about. There's a lot
Let's
of things.
bitch.
I don't know where we want to go with this. What we want to start with. Let's start fun.
Mhm.
This is the week where okay, so was the week where massive rains descended onto Burning Man, the annual music and art festival in the desert, and the place
Mhm.
got at least 5 STIs. One of them was thinking that you like dubstep, which is definitely an infection. Now, Burning Man is usually hot and dry and dusty, which is why I stay away from it completely. But not this year. No. It was wet. Lots of rain led to mudslides. 70,000 people were trapped for days in Black Rock Desert. Burning Man has also, though, like, been different lately. Because so when I saw it, you're like, who? Like, everyone has their own little Airstream. Because Burning Man has been like a bunch of techies and VCs, going to like microdose and think about like, whose idea they can steal for the next, useless app that will completely destroy some major American industry. So that's what it's been. But there's also normal people. I know good people who still go. Here's a little bit more about it. The organization, there's even a CEO of Burning Man, which is very funny. Told attendees to shelter in place on Saturday when announced that access into and out of the site was closed for the remainder of the evening, which runs from August 27th through September 4th. Only emergency vehicles were allowed to pass. Conserve food, water, and fuel and shelter in a warm, safe space, the statement urged those stuck in the desert. For those of you who don't know, again, Burning Man started in 1986 as a small gathering in San Francisco, but now celebrities, tech moguls, social media influencers are common attendees. This year's price started at $575, which is a lot for like not having Beyonce or Kendrick Lamar there, I spent less than that on my Beyonce tickets. This weekend's events weren't the first time the entrance had been blocked at the year's festival. A group of climate protesters caused miles of gridlock at the start of the event. So this is just fun and kind of interesting. So there was a group of climate protesters with Extinction Rebellion and Rave Revolution. I guess they're called Seven Circles. And they're basically like, you guys cause massive amounts of carbon emissions and waste. Now, the what is it? The slogan of Burning Man is like, leave no trace, like bring all your dirt with you, or dirt. Yeah, bring the dirt. Bring your trash. Yeah. Don't exactly. But getting to Burning Man itself, people are taking jets, people are taking, 15-wheelers or whatever those ones are. They're taking like their cars and they're in traffic for a long time. So these guys were like, you should ban private jets, single-use plastic, unnecessary propane burning, unlimited generator use per capita. Yeah. Calls for the organization to mobilize its members to initiate systemic change. But basically, just ban the PJs, ban the private jets. Yeah. Ban the lowest. That's what they want. Now, apparently, this protest was sort of weirdly got cleared by like tribal police because this is part tribal land. So tribal police were like, "Go away, stop." And some of the protesters were like, "Oh God, well, you guys are supposed to be our allies in climate change when it comes to this." So like, but I guess we'll listen to the indigenous folks of this land. So anyway, that being said, though, there was like, massive traffic in and out. There were muddy roads. It took 7 hours to drive 5 miles.
Wow. That's like the 405.
Oh my God. Don't even tell me. I went on that this weekend. This is a photo of Diplo and Chris Rock, however, getting out of Burning Man. They decided to leave. And
Chris Rock?
Chris Rock.
That's Chris Rock with the blonde hair?
I believe so. Or Diplo and Chris isn't pictured. Maybe Chris Rock is the guy in the red hoodie in the back there. But Diplo tweeted, just walked 5 miles in the mud out of Burning Man with Chris Rock, and a fan picked us up.
Yeah, because that's west from Daytona. That's Diplo right here on the left. Yeah. If Chris Rock dyed his hair blonde, I mean, I guess that's the thing.
I mean, look, he's, there's multiple midlife crises. He's earned it, after that slap.
After that slap? Yeah. Best thing that happened to him, man.
But so, yeah, thoughts on these. Okay, no, before we get your thoughts, I wanted to say that the right has some thoughts on this. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, Representative Marjorie Greene, on Alex Jones, and the two of them, let's just watch this. The two of them can't decide whether the Burning Man floods were an act of God or an act of the left sabotaging the festival in order to prove a point about climate change. They're both trying to go in different directions, so take a look.
We are watching, from a distance. There are approximately like 73 or 75,000 people in Nevada.
And they're locked in there from floods. And I'm glad I was going to raise that. They literally did a mock sacrifice and all.
First of all, shut up, Alex. She's making a point. They did a mock sacrifice. This is what you're calling the burning of Burning Man at the end. Here we go.
They literally did a mock sacrifice and all this, and then it flooded with these tornadoes, and it was. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, God has a way of making sure everyone knows who God is. I'll say that about that. But let's talk about what is happening.
What does that mean? God is a way of making sure everyone knows who God is. So yeah, this is the point. First of all, if you're listening to this, Marjorie Greene and Alex Jones are virtually the same exact person. They have the same build. They dress the same. One has like ruffles on her sleeves and blonde hair, and that's the only difference between these two. Are just sort of like two sides of the coin. It's like very like the Adam Sandler movie Jack and Jill, which I did not see, but like I'm getting those vibes. So okay, so he's saying act of God. Here she goes.
I'll say that about that. But let's talk about what is happening to these people. So there's 73, 75,000 people in Nevada desert right now at this Burning Man. They're locked in. They're not allowed to leave. And they're basically probably being brainwashed that climate change is the cause of all of it.
Well,
it's the root of all evil, and it's going to destroy the earth. And they're feeling the panic. And
the media is saying that. Oh, this is because you didn't know about climate change.
Yes. So what's going to happen, Alex? It's the same thing, same way they launch any kind of movement. After this is over in Burning Man and these 75,000 people disperse and they go back home, they're going to have these stories to tell and how terrible it is and how we have to do everything possible to stop climate change. It's caused by humans and it's carbon. And it's the amount of carbon that we put out. It's manufacturing. It's our gas and diesel engines. It's agriculture. I mean, AOC wants to get rid of cattle.
First of all, the best thing about Marjorie Greene is she actually understands what causes climate change. She just listed, and they're going to tell us that like the rapid warming ever since the industrial age has meant an increase in carbon. And then you got methane, which is actually 20 times more capturing in terms of carbon when you release in the atmosphere and has a half-life of 500 million years. Like she's just like knows everything about it. And it's all a hoax. Like, and AOC wants to ban cattle. Remember when AOC was like, we need a Green New Deal and to ban cattle? Okay, so she's almost
people, man.
She's almost done. We're coming full circle here.
Even population, we have too many humans putting out too much carbon. You're going to start hearing all this stuff, and this is going to build. And I believe this is the left's new lie they're going to put on the American people and try to get everyone behind and create it to where, remember AOC and the left and many others said that the earth is going to literally explode in a ball of fire. We're going to all die. It's going to be the end of the world.
I do remember that.
This is what they're brainwashing people to believe.
No.
It was all a plan. The only conspiracy of Burning Man, the only conspiracy of Burning Man is that Burning Man is fun. Like that's the conspiracy, is that this is worth your fucking time. And you should absolutely spend $575 plus hundreds of dollars.
It's like a $3,000 to $4,000 commitment. I think Burning Man is such an exercise of white privilege. I don't care if you're not white and you go, that's still white privilege. If you can go to Burning Man, that's white privilege. Like just to be uncomfortable so you could just go do drugs and fuck strangers and
again, and we are going to talk about border crossings. Like imagine willingly going to a desert and like having just being covered in dust and struggling. Nobody wants to go there. No, look, I know people who go to Burning Man, and I know people who form like the people of color, like caucus or, the crew at Burning Man, which I think is great. I think that's really important. But it's just very much not for me. And in the mud, oh, hell no. So this is a question, because we're going to talk about would you, wouldn't you? But would you leave at that point? Would you try to leave walking miles in the mud, or would you just hang?
I don't know. Natural disasters freak me out, bro. So I would just get out of there. Because like that's one thing like you can't control. Like a natural disaster is undefeated. Like no one has ever been able to stop a natural disaster. So for me, I would have tried to evacuate. myself.
I think I might have done that, but then I would probably be like, just do a little more acid and hang, like just like be in the present moment, stay in your body. Again, listen to the dubstep. The beats are sick. They keep going. And yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. I would have had this whole but Francesca, you came here to get out of your head.
Now you're in your head, but
you're in your head about it. Just stay put. Everything's fine. And it seemed like everything was fine. It seems like people, other than the amount of traffic, and again, the one person who died, which we don't know.
I'm pretty sure. So don't people die every year?
That's what I was thinking. Someone does the wrong cocktail of Molly and DMT or some shit, and trip forever, and then they just go. But yeah, there were some fun people who were there. Neil Katyal was there. He's a lawyer who appears on MSNBC often, corporate lawyer. I think even a former Republican, if I'm not. Hang on. Oh, he was in the Obama administration. Also, Lee Fung was in there. And now, if you don't know who that is, he's he's a journalist with The Intercept who made a very quick right-wing heel turn. So fuck that guy. I don't give a shit. Lee Fung. Yeah, man. He's terrible. When my friend was killed in Oakland, this is an aside. He was basically she was killed because she believed in reforming the police, and I was just like, you can go away forever, my dude. Anyway, so that's fun. A little petty on my part, but yeah. So that's Burning Man. It's justified. That's Burning Man. Let's move on to our second story, though. We got to do this. We got to get into this because this was also the week where Joe Biden, he's trying. He announced 10 drugs that will be eligible for price negotiations under Medicare as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And sadly for the Senate, Cialis didn't make the cut.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So sad. Now, maybe you're not over 65 if you're listening. Maybe you don't use any meds. Congratulations. But the price changes will potentially help 50 million Americans. That's right good. Now, 9 million seniors pay as much as $6,500 a month for out-of-pocket costs. Medicare pays twice as much as the VA for its meds. The VA can negotiate prices. Medicare cannot. So those are some important things. Here's the drugs that did make the cut, though. A lot of Eliquis, Jardiance, Xarelto. So we got diabetes, blood clotting, heart failure, autoimmune conditions, cancer, psoriasis and arthritis, diabetes, all stuff that a lot of seniors do struggle with. Now,
I like how these names all look like bands at Lollapalooza.
Oh yeah, this is the Burning Man for seniors. Like if you're over 65, you're like, fuck yeah, you check out the Januvia tent. Were you there?
Yeah. We were at the Aliquis tent.
Yeah. Solara was fire. And my psoriasis was not. So over on the right, you can see just how much Medicare spends in the billions. Eliquis, blood clotting drug from Pfizer, $16.5 billion is spent on that through Medicare. So again, this is all coming from, other than the military, one of the biggest things that the government spends money on, the thing that Republicans hate, which is Medicare, which is great. Healthcare, it should be good, but this is hugely cost saving, and it's been that we've been gouged for so many years. Just to give you a sense of how much we've been gouged, the Medicare and Medicaid services spent $50.5 billion between June 2022 and the end of May 2023 on these 10 drugs. $50 billion 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year. So this is about 20% of the total cost of drugs in the Medicare prescription drug program known as Part D. Now, of course, they're not going to be free. They might not be as cheap as the VAs, but at least it's like the ability to negotiate.
So these people, older seniors won't have to pay as much.
Exactly. I do think it'd be funny if we left the negotiating to them.
Yeah. What's a
just
fair
go to
price?
Their pharmacist. We're like, come on,
What's a fair price for your life, though? I mean, this.
I mean, honestly, $10 a bottle, if that.
Yeah.
But yet, even though this is just negotiations, Big Pharma's super mad. This is just this summer. All right. Merck sues U.S. government to halt Medicare drug pricing negotiation. Novartis sues U.S. government over Medicare drug pricing regulation. Humana sues U.S. government to block Medicare clawback rule. AstraZeneca sues U.S. government over drug price reforms. So they're mad.
How much money do you need, bro? Like literally, how much? I think about that all the time. Where people are so greedy and like everything. Like if we don't have people, if we don't have a planet, like what the fuck does it matter if you have all the money?
Exactly. I mean, you can Burning Man. Exactly. You can only buy so many Airstreams and tents there.
Yeah.
But again, and we will, to quote the head of the UAW, which we're going to talk about that next week, who may be going on strike very soon. It's he said, so some other asshole can shoot themselves to the moon. Like that's pretty much what it is. It's like, oh, so you can have your Mars project. That's what we're all doing here. It's board money. That's how much money is just board money. But it's a huge step in the right direction. Here was also, here was Biden this weekend celebrating Labor Day. He's dunking on, he's dunking on, sorry, I remember we have a little bit of a thing. So actually, before we leave this, here's Ro Khanna actually speaking on MSNBC about these drug prices.
From Paul Ryan, the Republicans have been railing against the cost of Medicare, the cost of deficits. They've done nothing about it. Joe Biden is the first president who says, okay, let's reduce the cost of Medicare. You know how you reduce the cost? You go after the excessive fees. One of the excessive costs is pharmaceuticals. They're making billions of dollars of profits. It's going into stock buybacks and shareholders. The American people are getting fleeced. And President Biden is saying, no, we're going to stop it. We're going to negotiate. We're going to have Americans pay the same price as places other countries around the world pay. And you know who was for this, actually? Donald Trump. What's the difference? Yes. Joe Biden actually delivered what Donald Trump was talking about.
And he's not lying. I just look back.
Mic drop.
2016, Trump campaigned on this. He campaigned that he was going to lower med prices for seniors. He met with pharma lobbyists weeks after he was inaugurated, and he thought, no, any kind of price negotiation would, quote, hurt smaller, younger companies, the smaller, younger billionaires. It'll hurt them. So he decided for the Trump tax cuts, $1.1 trillion, which, by the way, speaking of private jets, you could write off your private jet under those tax cuts. So Mateen, I know you took advantage of that loophole.
Yeah, I got my private jet in the back.
Can you also? My question is, can you also write off the photo sessions that make it look like you're in a private jet? You know, those ones for like the Instagram?
You should be able to.
Right?
Yeah.
Do something for the people. That's what we get. That's like the reform we want. We don't just want private jets written off. We want the people pretending they own a private jet or fly in one. That should be written off as well. And here was Biden then, like I was saying, on Labor Day, a little shade thrown at Donald Trump.
We also passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. You can't have the strongest economy in the world with a second-rate infrastructure. Can you believe we used to have the best infrastructure in the world, and then we fell to number 13 in the world, roads, bridges, internet, the whole deal. 13, the United States of America, 13th in the world. But guess what? Guess what? The great real estate builder, the last guy here, he didn't build a damn thing. Under my predecessor, Infrastructure Week became a punchline. On my watch, infrastructure has been a decade and it's a headline.
Stick that landing.
He's so old. He is so old. Oh man, I just see here Fire Marshal Bill from Living Color, Jim Carrey.
First of all, he's perfect for the job. He's a perfect age for this job. All right. Did he stick that landing? Yes, he did. It wasn't a punchline. It's a headline. Zing, baby. He's got it.
Oh,
no, look, this is good, and at least there's a little bit of, they're gonna. Mateen, are you ready for another Trump Biden debate?
No, I don't want to see that, but
I mean, we'll see if Trump is.
Oof.
I hate this phrase, but if he's man enough, do you know what I'm saying? Because he skipped the GOP primary debates. That's fine. But is he going to back down? If I were Biden, I challenge him to a debate. Or maybe they just both like sit on a rocking chair and like a porch and like.
I want to see him arm wrestle, bro. Come on, let's make it.
Oh no. Oh, no, I don't want that because Trump would win. Do you know how much strength like just pure bigotry gives you? You just it's like superhuman. Racism, it just gives you crazy strength. Anyway, why don't we move on? Let me bring in for the sitch. Let me get his proper. He is a professor at UC Santa Cruz, researching the intersection of medical anthropology, public health, and Latinx and Latin American studies. He's currently developing his first manuscript, tentatively titled Captive States, Migration and Expulsion on the Carceral Frontier. That is an academic headline if I ever heard one. Carlos Martinez, what's up?
Hey, Franny Feel. Hey, Mateen. Good to be here.
So good to have you here.
Incredible to be back on the podcast. I can't believe I was your inaugural guest on this show. I don't understand how that happened. That must have been a mistake, but we're really glad to be here again.
It was you, me, and NATO, and we're like, you're smart, you're our friend, let's do this.
No, it wasn't NATO. It was.
Oh, it was Matt?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And it was in your home.
It was in my
which
right.
It still is, actually, I guess now. But.
It still is, indeed. No, we've come a long way. Now I'm in a different home, but in my home. Carlos, you've been up to a lot since the last time we spoke. And I want to get into some of the stuff you've been researching and specifically like what is happening on the border. But first, in terms of Republicans, we had the debate among the people who are not Trump, trying to out-Trump Trump. And the latest thing that not just the Republicans there, but also Trump and Marjorie Greene and others, the latest thing is we have to invade Mexico. This is the new line. It's not enough to build a wall. We got to invade Mexico. And because we're going to stop the fentanyl crisis.
Right.
Thoughts? Do you have notes on that plan? Just a little.
No, I don't have any thoughts on that. Yeah, no, I mean, of course we have to invade Mexico. It's like, there's like a stopwatch, like a timer on this, right? Like we have to always kind of re-invade Mexico after every few years or something, right?
Right.
And for some new sort of reason, right? And now the reason, of course, is fentanyl. It's completely absurd, but it's a perfect talking point for the Republican Party, plays into all kinds of things, longstanding xenophobia, longstanding anti-Mexican sentiment, right? The moral panic and drug panic that we're in right now around fentanyl, which of course is real. The fentanyl overdose crisis is a very real crisis. But like we've done over the last, several decades, right? We are once again trying to place blame elsewhere and approach this issue in a militaristic way instead of, doing some really basic kind of public health interventions, right? Thinking about how do we actually help people who are using substances, who are experiencing addiction, right? No, the easier option is to bomb the hell out of Latin America, basically, which has been a long-standing tradition in the war on drugs, right? So I think we talk a lot about the war on drugs these days, how harmful it's been in the United States, mass incarceration. A lot of times people forget about how harmful it's been in Latin America, right? And this is like, the thing is like this isn't a new thing. Like we already invaded Mexico, essentially. Remember the Merida initiative, right? The U.S. has essentially invaded Mexico with arms, with guns, with funding to supposedly combat cartels to the tune of like $3 billion since 2006, right? And that's like just the latest. More recent version, right? Before that, it was Plan Colombia, right? To try to combat cocaine trafficking from Colombia. And that was like $11 billion, right, that the U.S. sent, along with arms and soldiers and, you know, all that kind of stuff to stop the flow of cocaine. And how's that doing? You know?
No, and the craziest thing, let's stick with the fentanyl stuff, right? And it is, you're right, a serious epidemic. And we've talked about on this program of how it is largely DEA created, and also, you know, sort of an overreaction to the clampdown on overprescription of opioids. But a lot of people have been turning to street fentanyl. And then also the ways it is unregulated. Anyway, without getting into all that, but like the production of fentanyl is happening in the United States by Americans. The idea, the fentanyl, maybe pure fentanyl, could be coming across the border, but I guess they're just like case in point, you know, in terms of how wrong-headed they are about this. It's like, it's not like the migrants that, especially like the women and children that you continue to demonize.
Right. Well, so yes, I mean, some fentanyl, of course, is being produced in Mexico, as you know. You see, kind of the ingredients are being trafficked often from China and things like that. And of course, this all plays into this kind of xenophobic stuff as well, very well.
Yeah.
But who's bringing it into the United States, right? So this is the whole thing: is that the Republican Party has been trying to argue that it's immigrants, that it's all these asylum seekers at the border that are bringing in the fentanyl. Sure. How about actually like 87% of the fentanyl that's been, you know, found by CBP at the border has been brought in by U.S. citizens, right? Like part. Most of it is brought, right? So, what's that?
I said that part.
That part. And it's being brought in through U.S. ports of entry, not like, you know, being encountered like kind of in the desert and things like that. I mean, migrants and asylum seekers are just trying to get asylum, right? Like that's what they're not trying to sneak in fentanyl, right? And the cartels obviously are much smarter than that, right? They're going to use U.S. citizens to try to do this instead of you know, some migrant that can easily be encountered and found, you know, trying to cross, right? And not only that, of course,
and they won't be able to carry that much anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it's
like it's bringing in a car be much easier, believe me, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Right. No, and you point out, you write often for like the Chronicle and other, and independent publications. I know you've had some critiques of the Chronicle's coverage specifically on like the idea that migrants are the only ones selling drugs. But you basically, you point out like people who are seeking asylum often will turn themselves in because they want to seek asylum. They're like, I want to go through this through the proper channels now that I'm on this side of the border. So it would make no sense for those same people to somehow all be drug mules. And to say nothing of Mateen, the fact that it would be incredibly ineffective.
Yeah, ineffective at all. That's the profit margin would suck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I remind everyone, we talked about this, of the San Jose former head of the San Jose like police union,
right?
Some blonde woman named Joanne. Joanne was the one who was actually sending fentanyl in the mail, y'all.
Right, Joanne. Yeah, there's a lot of Joannes as well. She's not the only Joanne that's doing this. In fact, you know, CBP is notorious for having officers who are very much implicated in trafficking of fentanyl. Just, I believe last year, they, you know, caught a 10-year CBP veteran of the CBP officer, you know, with trafficking tons of fentanyl over the years, right? I mean, this is like actually a major issue within the CBP that you don't ever hear reported about or discussed, of course, because it gets a little complicated, right? When we start talking about this stuff, right? But it's, you know, it's in the DNA of these organizations as well. I mean, this is drug money is corrupting, right? I mean, didn't we learn this from the prohibition of alcohol, right?
Right.
It's like,
stop people from drinking.
Right. Exactly.
No.
So, yes.
It led to the rise or strengthening of the mob. Yeah. And okay, so then we talk, you know, on this issue, especially both of these issues, the intersection of the drug crisis and the border crisis, or, you know, like the lack of a real immigration policy and the lack of asylum currently. Like, it's an issue where Republicans and Democrats are truly just a few shades of difference. I mean, maybe even one, maybe even just a little hair of difference.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess
true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just give me your thoughts, because we talked about this a couple weeks ago. but with Erica Andiola. But in terms of Biden continuing Trump's border policies and using this new app called the CBP-1 app, like, is there an argument to be made that because it's reduced crossings that like PR wise, it's a good thing? Or what do you make of Biden's approach?
I mean, certainly, sure. PR wise, it is a great thing for the Biden administration because, their approach to this issue, I think, has been to try to essentially make asylum seekers disappear, right? They don't want asylum seekers to be seen trying to cross the border because, of course, this is what Democrats are always being criticized for by Republicans. But the solution to this has then been to essentially try to make asylum even more difficult to try to access, right? Instead of, for example, putting more resources into having people support the processing of migrants who want to request asylum, right? To actually make it a more orderly process, a more fair process, a more transparent process. The approach is, we're going to make you guys, fill out this ridiculously long application on your phone to try to get an appointment like 3 months from now after you've already maybe traveled how many miles to escape whatever thing that you're trying to escape, which is in many cases a life-threatening situation. And in many cases, people trying to, follow you and, do bad things to you. It's so
if you're around in 3 months,
right,
if you're okay in 3 months,
right, exactly. So it's a great PR victory at the cost of the lives of migrants and asylum seekers, right? Unfortunately, who are still facing the same things that they faced before the introduction of this new app and these new kind of policies. And bear in mind that, also the other thing, right, is that the Biden administration has brought back from the dead, Trump's kind of what has been referred to as the third country ban, right? Where basically making it so that if you happen to travel through another country before arriving to this Mexico border, so any of the Central American countries, for example, or even Mexico, and you didn't try to request asylum in that country, you're now allowed to request asylum in the U.S., right?
It's so weird.
It's totally unrealistic. Trump tried to implement this. It was shot down by several courts, and now Biden has brought it back. Actually, so
that's also being shot down by courts. The same, I believe, the same judge was like, "No, it doesn't look good on you either."
Right.
Which is, we'd have to truly change the laws if what the wish of Republicans and some Democrats is to just get rid of the right to an asylum or right to asylum.
Right. And mind you, of course, this isn't I think people often get confused. What we're talking about is even giving people the right to request asylum, right? This is all this is for, right? This isn't even promising people the ability that they will be given asylum, right? That's a whole other process. This is just giving people the opportunity to just ask for it, to go through the process to demonstrate that they deserve asylum, right? That they have a situation that requires that,
There's we've been kind of on this topic for a while, and it's been very eye-opening and interesting. We had Lovato on recently last week.
Yes, I saw.
And we talked about this clampdown in El Salvador from Bukele, the president, who's kind of going zero tolerance, scorched earth, locking up anyone who might be suspected, has a tattoo, I don't know, is involved in a gang. And even, I'm just going to be real with you, someone who watches this show said that they visited El Salvador and it felt really safe and it felt a lot better. And there were a lot of, sort of anecdotal people saying that. So it's just...
yeah, I was just there myself in July.
Yeah. And did you notice a difference of the sort of... Or did people talk to you about how they are afraid of being incarcerated or in themselves?
Yeah, it varies, right? I mean, some people are certainly very afraid. And of course, there's a movement of people whose family members have been taken without any sort of charges brought against them and put into prisons, who, it doesn't appear that they're members of gangs necessarily. There's neighbors who are maybe have a beef with their family and are saying it's right. Saying he's a gang member. and like things like that are happening, right? And on the other hand, yeah, like you said, I mean, he's unfortunately wildly, popular. Fascism has a tendency to be popular in certain scenarios, and it works well in the short term, right? In the sense that, sure, you lock away thousands of people, and some of whom are actually involved with, kind of MS-13, kind of organizations like that have perpetrated violence, and that in the short term, sure, that sounds like a great, but I think
nothing bad happens when you lock a bunch of like sort of people with no gang affiliation or like economically sort of struggling. No gang is ever formed inside of a prison. We all know that, Exactly. They're gonna come out like the super MS-13. You're gonna be like MS-26. Exactly. Does that already exist? But just like it's just the same. Yeah, the root causes have not been addressed at all. Right. The lack of jobs or security or the climate chaos or all the other reasons that people are even pushed into that, narco work, in general.
Exactly.
But let's go back. Sorry. And Mateen, feel free to jump in wherever. And I apologize. But when for your research, you spent a lot of time in Tijuana, and you talk about like both the public health crisis and also the immigration, breakdown at the border. You talked to, I believe, a lot of homeless people who are addicts, also migrants. Now, thanks to a lot of these denying people asylum, there are just people waiting on the Mexico side and on the Guatemalan side, but on the Mexico side of the border. Just what is it like there? What is this like forgotten land?
Right. Yeah. So, I think what I have tried to do in my research is really look at what's happening to two different communities of people at the border that have arrived at the border in very different ways, but are both kind of stuck there, right? So on the one hand, asylum seekers, right, who are often coming from either the interior of Mexico or elsewhere in the world, right, who because of all these policies that the Trump administration has implemented and then now the Biden administration has implemented are basically stuck in these border cities for months, if not years, right? And then on the other hand, I spent a lot of time, as you said, with homeless folks, many of whom were folks who have been deported actually from the US. So these are Mexican nationals who were deported from the United States back to border cities. Oftentimes, Tijuana receives the highest percentage of deportees from the United States and the entire hemisphere, actually.
Really?
So yeah. So people often think of Tijuana as like the deportee capital of the Americas, right? And so it was a really heavy and fascinating place to spend some time, especially these last few years where we've had these kinds of different flows of communities arriving, and then, of course, totally experiencing different realities, but then both sort of essentially, this is where I talk about this, very academic idea of the carceral frontier, right? Where they're imprisoned at the border, where the border itself has sort of become a prison landscape for them. And so for deportees, the issue there is that these are folks, again, like I said, who are Mexican, but in many cases have spent most of their lives in the United States, are folks who have often gone through the criminal justice system of the United States, and then return as deportees with a tremendous amount of stigma, right? And oftentimes
return to Mexico with the stigma of having been deported and also having not lived in this country for decades.
Exactly. Don't know the culture. Some don't even know the language.
Exactly. And then end up homeless, right? Because they don't have familial networks oftentimes at the places they're deported to. And then what happens? They're actually being often kind of targeted by the police because they're easy.
Crime rate goes up.
Yeah, well, and then of course, folks, it's easy and desirable to use drugs in that context, I would say. And so folks are then targeted by police very frequently and are, they're easy victims of policing in Tijuana and other border cities. And so, those are sort of some of the dynamics that I look at. And I think, a thread that sort of runs through a lot of this, I realized later was the ways in which kind of the war on drug policies really intersect with immigration in a lot of ways that we don't always think about. So, a lot of the asylum seekers that are fleeing countries is because they're fleeing, kind of drug war situations, right? Whether that's you're talking about Honduras or then in the interior of Mexico. These are folks who are fleeing kind of cartel violence in many cases, right? And with deportees, in many cases, folks are being deported still in very large numbers for drug-related, kind of crimes, right? For just possessing even drugs, right? And then, border cities being what they are, places for trafficking drugs, there's a wide abundance of drugs available. And so, like I said, it sort of becomes something that an easy way to escape the realities that you've been placed in. And so. Yeah.
Zooming out to the policy stuff. Before I let you go, or I have two more questions, but one of them is this is such a Gordian knot. I want to use that phrase because of drug policies, in U.S. foreign policy, and then and border policies you're talking about. And we've talked about, Yohan Grillo, who writes all about narco violence, and his last book, I think he's got a new book out, but was about the Iron River, he calls it, of guns flowing not just legally through the plans that you talked about, but illicitly from, I don't know, Mateen, if you've been on the border, but there are so many gun stores and people buy guns and then bring them down, into Mexico, and they flow, again, this Iron River flow, and that fuels a lot of that narco violence too. But I guess with everything so intertwined, what's the loosest piece for you? Is it funding more immigration courts? Is it changing immigration policy? Is it easing, the drug war? Is it legalizing certain substances that would drastically, where do you see the next piece loosening, if it could?
All the above, can I say?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, can I have all of the above?
Just throwing it at the wall,
Yeah. All those sound great. Fran DeFio for president, please. No, really, we do have to work at, all those levels, right? Because as you said, this is a knot, right? That's being caused by an array of punitive policies, right? Of policies that are out to punish people, that are not, set up for humans, right? In the complexity of human lives. And so, the war on drugs, I think, has been one of the most disastrous kind of set of policies, again, not just for the United States.
Drugs is undefeated.
Right. And for the entire region, exactly. Drugs have won.
They're still strong. They're winning.
Time. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Funny how that happened.
And so, we've the war on drugs has always been about approaching this through, kind of what we, talk about as the supply side, right? Sort of trying to reduce the supply, the production, the trafficking of drugs. And that has obviously been a complete and total failure, and will continue to be whenever there is, a market, a demand for drugs. There will continue to be drugs flowing, right? That's just the reality that we have to contend.
And the U.S. government is responsible for bringing them in.
Exactly. Well, absolutely. And that's been a part of the history as well up till now, right? Is the U.S.'s own role in all of this. And so, I think the war on drugs has really been much more about U.S. hegemony in the region. It hasn't been about actually trying to stop the flow of drugs. And I think that's becoming clear now for a lot of people, right? It's about U.S. power. It's about it's about selling more guns. It's about,
selling military training and just sort of making sure these countries are under our thumb militaristically.
Fear mongering.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's, I think of it as like drug war imperialism, right? And we hear, Don Paley talks about drug war capitalism. I think this, there's also this drug war imperialism thing happening as well.
Right. That's so ineffective and so clearly led to the amount of blowback, like the creation of gangs, like we just sort of spiral out and it gets worse and worse. And the drug war just becomes, it's like Republican candidates. They become sort of even just more cartoonish and more ridiculous versions of themselves. I feel like that's what happens on the border, to the point where you have Greg Abbott rolling out, buoys with razor wire on them. It's just like we are literal cartoons at this point. Like this, just a fucking Wile E. Coyote Looney Tunes type shit.
Right. Whereas people like him, have made it very difficult to do any kind of real work around addressing issues of substance use and addiction and overdose, right? Like, where Narcan is still very difficult to access in many places, something that a medication that can reverse opioid overdose, right? Or, fentanyl testing strips, right? Like giving people the chance to actually test their drug to see if it has fentanyl in it, because kind of one of the biggest ways in which overdose is happening right now is because people are using, some drug like crystal, like methamphetamines or cocaine, and don't realize that there's fentanyl in it, right?
Yeah.
So there's some very simple, like, imagine like we spent billions of dollars on kind of this militaristic approach to the war on drugs, and just imagine if like 1 billion of that was actually spent, right, in kind of in this way, right? We could really make a lot more headway
keeping people alive. Well, I mean, it's an interesting, I think that focusing on that, like the user side, but not from a criminal, like not from criminalizing it or decriminalizing it, because it creates politically, it's such a toxic fucking cesspool that like all the homeowner, even libs, get so upset about, and you've got, articles about Portland that I was bitching about weeks ago, about how, the decriminalization has failed, like, even though it's been inactive for like 6 months, less, whatever, like no time. But you're right that like really focusing, that's why I'm just like, the resistance from even supposedly liberal governors like Gavin Newsom to safe injection sites, the criminal, like that same thing in New York. These are blue states. It's like, no, man, if you guys can't get on board with something so basic, testing strips, the safe injections, needle exchange, whatnot, like any kind of harm reduction, like we're so fucked on,
and expanding access to voluntary treatment as well, right? Like giving people that whole piece is like, it's so difficult to access treatment where people aren't forced to just go off of drugs immediately, right? Like that isn't abstinence based, right? I mean, so there's just so much work to be done. I mean, when people think about harm reduction, it's like we have to forget that like the type of harm reduction that is allowed to be done in the United States is like the most minimal form of it, right? Like there's a whole array of sort of harm reduction strategies that we aren't even allowed to do, right? Like you said, safe consumption sites, but also safe drug supply, actually, right? Which I know sounds crazy to people, but like, yes, if people are going to do meth, like let's give them some prescription, like methamphetamine, right? To know that they're like getting exactly, the kind of dose quantity that is going to prevent them from overdosing, right? And then let's provide services. Yeah.
Right. But on that, and this is why I think this country, I mean, let's just like, I'm just so close to calling it quits, is that if the market's not involved, this country is allergic to a solution. So you can legalize marijuana as long as people can make money off of it.
Money.
And exactly.
How much money you need.
Right. And just circle back to our negotiations around like the legalized, the line is so blurry between, I mean, fentanyl is legal in a hospital setting. Like these big pharma companies freak the fuck out when they want price controls. They're just narcos with white collars. I said it.
It is. Absolutely.
They are narcos.
But no, but for real. And it's like, because what you just described would require a price negotiation and control of these substances. And oh no, we can't do that, because if the market's not involved, even if this market is killing people, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, even getting those, like, what is it, 12 like drugs negotiated,
10,
like or whatever it is. I mean, it's just like, why can't we do that with all drug prices in this country, right? I mean, so I mean, absolutely.
No, but I do think, as I studied when Uruguay legalized marijuana, and they did something that we will never do in this country, but had basically like government-run marijuana fields, and you could go, you have your little card, you buy affordable weed from the government, and they limit how much you can get. You can also grow it yourself. But again, it was this whole like, can you imagine? I mean, ironically, for all the Republicans that have now invested in marijuana, hello, John Boehner, remember that a-hole? Like they would freak out if there was like Biden-run marijuana farms.
Right, exactly. I mean, so much of this, of course, also runs up against the, kind of moral fabric of this country, right? Which is based upon punishment and austerity. And you should never enjoy yourself, supposedly, although you should, go to Las Vegas or whatever, which actually I just did. But anyways, yeah.
Wait, why?
Oh, I was just there to see the B-52s. No big deal. Yeah, it's fun.
B-52s.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
What? Because he went to Vegas, or he likes the B-52s?
I don't know. No, Vegas is fine. B-52s are like the one band that I'm like, I hate. Like, it's like an earworm, and it drives. I'm not a fan.
You listen to the wrong songs. You like only know Rock Lobster probably, which I, sure. Like,
it's objectively obnoxious.
Move beyond Rock Lobster.
Okay. Yeah. I got to get the B-sides of the B-52s.
Yes.
Carlos, last. A bunch of Latino lawmakers, speaking of AOC, I think Joaquin Castro, they took a trip to Latin America, but unlike a lot of trips to Latin America that Congress people take, which are usually to visit with like the Venezuelan opposition, these folks actually talked with like progressive leaders, like, for example, Gabriel Boric, the president of Chile, who kind of rose to power through a student uprising and revolution. He's like 38. And there was a beautiful exchange. I want to talk about it on my bonus show on Friday, but what do you make of this new push and posturing towards Latin America that has a lot to do with like learning from their political movements, and doesn't come with this, like, again, this patronizing, you must do X, Y, and Z before we meet with you?
Yeah. Well, I do think it's an incredibly important like step, right? I don't want to like, I guess, place all my eggs in this basket or over, get overhyped on it or exaggerate it. But, I also don't want to like understate how important it is. I think it's incredibly important gesture, to go and actually sit and meet with Francia Marquez in Colombia and, Boric in Chile, and have some real conversations, right? And have some sort of presence, and to have like an independent, relationship from, Biden and Kamala Harris, right? Who are saying, like, don't come to, like people who are considering migrating, right? Is like sort of their message, Yes. So I do think that it's important that a group of, politicians have staked sort of an independent path or are trying to form sort of this different kind of relationship. Now, what that translates into policy wise, I guess, is a whole other question, and we can only hope. I do think that there's been some important steps that, like, people like AOC have taken and trying to, confront drug war policies in the region. She got some amendments in last year's NDAA, like National Defense Authorization Act, that were like, one of them was about not allowing the U.S. to fund aerial fumigation of crops, right? Which is environmentally disastrous for Colombians, and we know it's associated with all kinds of health issues. So there's been some important steps, right, that people like AOC have taken, I think, to kind of counteract some of those like long-standing drug war kinds of policies.
You mean she doesn't just wear fancy dresses to the Met Gala? Man, she's doing real work. There's shit she's doing. Right. And just, I will say, like, I have hope. I mean, one day, I hope. I mean, look, Boric, that uprising was like 2014. Like 15 years later, becomes president. Guys, it can happen. Yeah. She also has done things like asking the U.S. to apologize. Says the U.S. should apologize for helping with the CIA-backed coup in Chile and against Allende, things like that. So
yes, yeah. Yeah, it's important. Yeah, hey man, if Bannon's like going down there and meeting with fascists, like, I do think it's important that, progressives be forging some sort of relationships as unequal as those relationships inherently are, because it's still the U.S. politicians, and it's a fraught relationship inherently. I think it's important that these kind of small baby steps be taken, and so hopefully it leads to more. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, it's just so great that it was. It seems like it did not have anything to do with Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. Kamala did not ask them to go do that, obviously. But she's probably pissed about it. So
Yeah.
Carlos Martinez, you're wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there something people should follow or check out?
I don't know. Google me. I'm at UC Santa Cruz. Yeah, that's all I could say. I don't have like a flashy website yet. You know, I'll
well,
try.
Speak. You got no, and
I got some books behind me now. You know, that's like
all your books. You wrote all.
I got books. I'm more professional now.
There you go.
Like, you know, I got like a nice background now.
Yeah. When you're not like shrooming and hugging redwoods over there.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
I miss you, friend. I'm hope Likewise. To see you one day soon and come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was saying it was great.
It was great to meet you. Yeah. He was like, I'm out.
I'm out. Bye. Mateen, we got one more segment. Stick around. Yeah.
All right. I'm here. Yeah,
okay, let's do this. A few things happen. I want to just gauge you in the audience, like kind of show-stoppy, interesting moments. Show-stoppy, I guess. This is Would You? Okay, so this happened pretty much after, immediately after the last show. I believe last Wednesday, but it feels like a lot longer. Mitch McConnell stopped. Like he froze on camera again. I don't. If you need a little bit of it, here it is.
I had a hard time hearing it.
That's okay. What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute.
Okay.
I love that. I love that so much.
So the question is, would you retire? Now, it is so painful to have to watch this. It's so painful that we have to, the whole world, everyone sees this. And, I'm going to tell you, I've noticed he looks up at the exact same place both times. He's seeing a demon, Mateen. It is a straight up demon come to visit him.
It's death.
Straight death. Dude, death is tall, right? So he had to look up.
Yeah, I don't know. He should be, 81, bro. You should, in no other place in the world, no other thing, elected officials, is this an 81-year-old's like, oh yeah, I'm still going to be. If you went to a restaurant and your server was 81 years old, you'd be like, why are you here?
Yes, please sit down. No, first of all, this is the United States, so there's always some 80-year-old bagging groceries, and you're like, damn.
Him and Dianne Feinstein, they just need to go away, bro. They're too old.
And they cancel each other out. They could just be like, yo, one from the red, one from the blue. Peace.
Let's out. We out. Why are you here? If he's doing that's telling you that he's not capable enough to do his job if he can't even answer one simple question.
And also, I feel like the last thing that a person who's that old, or who's that, you can be an 81-year-old and be totally with it. Mm-hmm. Neither of these people are. And
no,
you just like you would write a will or instructions for if you are terminally sick, mm-hmm. You need to have directives for when you freeze on camera. Yeah. You cannot cast a vote. You are not there. You can't remember things. There needs to be, if we're not going to have fucking term limits, you got to at least have some directives for when this shit happens.
Yeah, if this happens, if you're telling me you're not functional to be able to answer a question, you need to be able to be like, yo, you walk away, you're done, bro.
Well, at least that, but oh my God. So, okay, apparently it was not a stroke nor a seizure. Unclear if it was related to a fall that he took earlier this year, which is on top of another, I think he had a shower situation fall. There've been a couple falls, but so I'm waiting for them to be he sees spirits, of the people who he's denied healthcare to in the past, mm-hmm. Kentuckians who've died from being unable to afford their meds. That's who I hope is haunting him. Yeah. But would you retire?
Yes. Yeah.
But you're so poor. You don't have money though, Mateen, as a senator.
No, man, he has so much money. Why is he here? I hate him so much. He's I can't even express how much
he must retire.
He really years, but
Okay, we got that down. Let's move on to our. I would agree. We retire. We're gonna retire. Next, would you eat radioactive fish from the Fukushima Daiichi plant, the water outside? Now, of course, not necessarily radioactive. So just this week, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and 3 of his cabinet ministers ate Fukushima fish sashimi, not even cooked. It's not a cooked salmon roll, y'all. This is not like, your average shrimp tempura. This is some straight sashimi, in order to prove that the treated wastewater is treated, that it's okay. So it was right by where the nuclear plant melted down in 2011. And it's because people have banned, China had banned all imports of Japanese seafood.
Stupid. That's just a power move.
That's just a dumb. I agree.
They contaminate more places than anywhere in the world.
Exactly.
So,
really,
that's just a power move.
Meanwhile, their water is just full of factory runoff.
Everything. Yeah.
No, it is utter. You're totally right. Apparently, former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel went to go eat the sushi. Everyone's eating the sashimi and trying to do this. Do you do this, Mateen? Is this important to show?
If I'm the guy in charge, yes, I do it. Because especially if you know that, you have to show people that you trust what you're doing. It's it reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons, where George Burns had to eat that 3-eyed fish. But you have to do it if you want to prove to people that you will know what you're doing, especially, and if you know that you know that it works. What's the harm?
I don't know. This is just very Obama going to Flint, Michigan, and drinking the water.
The water's safe.
Yeah.
But that's just what I'm saying. But that water wasn't really treated. We have documentation that no one did some of that water. Obama wasn't there doing it. At least this guy was we've been here. We trust.
Right. And it was, to be fair, 2011, long time ago. So this is over a decade later.
But it still doesn't have water, by the way.
Right, exactly. Flint still without clean water.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. It's true. If you're gonna claim that everything's good and hunky dory, you might have, and that your program worked.
Your program
you
works.
might have
because not only that, you want to show that this program works, so you want to take it to other places, and you make more money, and you could stimulate your economy in your country.
Also, I learned after visiting Japan that seaweed actually has high levels of radiation. There's something, and that actually it might be good for you. It might help you live longer, you guys.
Yeah.
So
Okinawa, they live a long time in Okinawa.
Yeah. Don't sleep on the radioactive fish here. Okay. So I'm going to say, I don't know. I might have had a cooked roll, but I'm going to say, yeah. We have a third event. Oh, I forgot about this one. This was good. This was really good. Okay. So it turns out, there is a vampire child in Poland who was buried 400 years ago, and archaeologists are digging him up. So this is a 400-year-old corpse that was locked to its grave. Why was a child corpse locked to their grave? Well, because it was a child revenant, a suspected child revenant. While excavating the unmarked mass cemetery at the edge of the village of Peen, near the Polish city of, I cannot even begin to try to pronounce that, but I like Peen. Badosh. Researchers from, thank you, Badosh. Researchers from Nicolaus Copernicus University in Torun unearthed the remains of what has been widely described to be a vampire child. The corpse, thought to have been about 6 at the time of death, was buried face down with a triangular iron padlock under its left foot in a likely effort to bind the child to the grave and keep it from haunting its family and neighbors.
Wow, that's wild, bro.
Wild. That's fucked up.
Nah, bro,
all I wanted to do, a 6-year-old, 6. All I wanted to do was just watch another episode of Bluey. You gotta fucking kill it.
That's wild, bro.
I
don't know what to say, man.
What kind of?
What does he have fangs?
I don't think so. No, it doesn't seem like there are fangs. There's a photo here. It just seems like this child was deemed to be a vampire, and to the point where they were so scared it would come back alive after you can only assume they killed it. I need to know whether it was died by natural causes or not.
Or maybe they buried it alive.
Or buried it alive.
And that's why you had to put a chain on them.
Sure. If you are an archaeologist, if you are excavating this, you take it out. What do you do?
Hell no, I don't touch that, man. I've seen way too many movies, bro. I don't touch that, bro. You do like this. You gotta do like this, man. All right, I'm done, guys. See you later. We are not unearthing this vampire.
I would absolutely not as well. But I think that the scientist in me, which I don't have, but if I were there, I'd be like, no, demons aren't real. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell over here seeing all these child vampires just fucking floating around him. If we unleash him just to haunt Republican senators, that's totally fine with me.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, but I don't know how to like steer him in the right direction.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust that shit, bro.
Mateen, can I ask you about a really inappropriate tweet that you had?
Yeah.
But was so funny.
What was it?
So a few weeks ago, there was a lot of discourse about the song "Try That in a Small Town."
Mm-hmm.
And it was all
I know where we're going here. Yeah.
So it was Jason Aldean, "Try That in a Small Town," which is filmed outside of basically where like lynchings took place.
Lynchings will happen, yeah, public lynchings.
Yeah, public lynchings. This is in what actual?
It's in Tennessee.
In Tennessee, okay, yeah, I've forgotten about that.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the whole, and it's basically like, try to steal some Skittles and then try to just be black. Like it's very like clearly coded against like so-called thugs. I don't know what the lyrics are. But then you had a very funny take where I think you either tweeted or you put on Instagram a photo of Ashley Babbitt. And the caption was, "Tried that in a big town."
She tried that in a big town. Yeah.
That's fucked up, man. That's really fucked up, but also made me laugh for so long.
She's treasonous, bro. She's a traitor, bro. She's a traitor, bro.
It's true. And it like, yeah, the thing that if those people who stormed the Capitol were majority black and women and queer and or anyone other than who they were, we would have been all murdered.
Yes.
Just shot dead.
Yes.
And did you get a lot of backlash for that?
I actually did. I mean, there wasn't that much backlash. There were more people were supportive of it than anything.
It was such a good take.
But I mean, some people, there you have the people that fall through the cracks, but like for real, it's the thing is like you want to make this thing and say it's not racial or whatever, and then you commit treason, and she was a traitor and she got killed.
Yeah.
She tried it and she got
tried it in a big town.
Yeah.
And it is it's also just funny because I think that when it comes to Ashley Babbitt, you have the right, like, venerating her hero, blah, blah. And then
she's a white woman. She's a white woman. So we always want to make excuses for white women. And
right. Well, and then I think you have liberals who kind of like, no one's relishing in her death, but you do have liberals who don't even really want to just say what it was, which was like, this is probably what would have happened had anyone else been doing this. And like, what do you expect?
She's trying to come in through the doors. Yes.
These police officers are tasked with defending the lives of Congress people. But I also think that people we don't yeah, man, you try that in a big town. Yeah, you gotta this is what happens.
Yeah.
You found out after you fucked around. Yeah. Anyway, I really like that. I thought that was hilarious. And I like you, Mateen, and I'm so glad you joined me on this very long but great show. Where can people find you, follow your work, see you live?
You can follow me on everywhere you can find me, Mateen Stewart. And also you can find me on every Sunday. I'm at the Hollywood Improv for my show Late for Work. 9:15 Sunday. We have our year anniversary this Sunday, September 10th. So come and check us out.
That's my birthday.
Oh yeah, well, happy birthday coming
Thank you. Do I get a guess set or like what?
We'll see. Talk to me after this.
All right, Mateen, stay well, be well. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you guys for also chilling for the long haul. Read some super chats. Dances with Gerbils, welcome to new membership over on YouTube. Thanks so much. Dick Topping, don't like that name, says, hi, Franny, how was Beyonce yesterday? Great. However, I'm not going to go see live music in a covered arena anymore. This is like the second time that I've seen live music in a covered arena, and it fucking sucks because the sound was dog shit in SoFi, guys. So either the next time I go, I have enough money to be on the floor, which I don't think will happen, or I just skip it because the sound was garbled. And I've seen Beyonce multiple times in outdoor venues, but that had better acoustics. Acoustics sucked, guys. Sorry, SoFi acoustics suck. There, I said it. I mean, if you know, you know. If you're going to spend money on an artist you really, really, really like, if it is a covered arena, it's not going to be good, people, unless you've got like thousands of dollars to be on the floor or in a really good section. I just needed just PSA. That being said, she's wonderful. She brought it. She was great. Gatling Combo says he wants to dead name people. We will keep calling it Twitter. About Elon Musk. Indeed. Sarah Layla, I'm surprised he didn't make Twitter SS instead of X. Mwah. With the SS as obviously lightning bolts. Jeff Curry, I heard Mitch McConnell got a tattoo on his forehead of that buffering wheel. Very funny. Descender Dragon, thank you for your super chat. Howdy, Franny. How have you not taken over TDR in John's absence? Prime coup opportunity using Trump's hand movements. I do take it over every Thursday. I'll be on Thursday. I'm hosting. So Mondays and Thursdays in September, and then Mondays and Fridays in October. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, Rachel. Happy almost birthday, you say. Hef, thank you for your super chat. Says it's called Pancho Man now. I don't know what that's in reference to. Pancho Man. Is that Burning Man? Pancho Man. I like it. Camperman 5000, speaking of men, thank you for being a member. Says my mom's on Entresto and Jardiance, so I'm quite glad Dark Brandon did this. Entresto is $1,300 and Jardiance is around $800. It's ridiculous. Oh my god, that's fucking insane. And I hope they do more than cut that in half. I hope even 200, like what's fair? That seems ridiculous. Pakal Kinich-Ganab, I'm sorry. Pakal Ganich-Janab, I'm messing that up. The DEA and the CIA smuggle drugs into the country and use Mexicans as frontmen. I don't doubt it. Fight for the cause on Twitch. UCSC, go banana slugs. It's just Vegas on Twitch reminding us you can get a generic Viagra pill for 87 cents a pill. Jesus Christ. Vitingale, thank you for being a member. Says, click the like button for the only contributor to the network with enough spine to say I disagree. Yeah, I disagree. I don't know which network. You mean TYT? I disagree with a lot of stuff that happens there. Thank you so much. The 505 Wrecking Ball, not to mention how much of our tax dollars went into some of their research, giving them research for free. Speaking of pharmaceuticals, indeed. Daniel Lee, what's up? Back in the comments saying the major societal disruptions in South America created by fascists are all still done with U.S. influence and support. Yes, they have been historically. Robert, thank you for your super chat. The capital class will always choose fascist populism because while they may lose political power, they get to stay rich. Robert, I don't have a cookie, but I think that is the comment of the day. As long as they get to stay rich, fascism is fine. JL, thank you for your super chat. Super appreciated. Henry King, your super chat, how generous, says, what about the next year they do the World is Burning Man festival instead in all ask each other why they are there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the people who go are bad, but it would be tight to have a festival that was about like real social change and doing some good shit and like you know, yeah, obviously it's about fun, but I feel like we're kind of in this. It's sort of like you're in one realm or the other. Either it's a like, you know, Coachella, just fucking whatever, like fuck around, or like do some real shit. Be hard. Get honest and real about make it impactful. Do something with it. Where it's kind of just like we're half hippie, half techie. We don't know. I guess that's how I feel about it. But then again, I don't like dust, so I am not a good I'm going to give you a negative review of this anyway. KMC and Todd Roy both saying that safe injection sites work and they save lives. And JL with another super chat. Thank you so much. Let's see. Angela Hofstadter shining some light on this vampire story. I think there's a lot of similar cases that related to TB. If a family kept getting sick, they would assume that one of the previously deceased family members is a vampire and take similar action. I mean, honestly, like the things that people have done in the name of their, like, what they believe are vampires is just like this I think a little bit of that poor 6-year-old. Like, yeah, if they were sick with something else and you didn't know what it was, you might have killed them 400 years ago. Martin also echoing. They just had a disease. They were just sick. You needed to help them. Anyway, so glad we found the cure for that. Everybody get your TB shots. What? And with that, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Let's throw down with the fart song. Let's do it. And think of all of our top patrons, $10 or more. Oh, I got to share this. Hang on. Stop down. Here we go. It's happening. The fart song. Thank you. We have no new patrons at $10 or more, but I see you $5 patrons. If you guys want to up your pledge to $10, you get a shout out and my undying love and access to even more perks, including the American Prospect. Maybe I need to sweeten the $10 pot. Shall I? Let's go over to Twitch. Rubberfingers, you subscribe with Prime. Thank you so much. Jungle Roams, resubscribe with Prime for 2 months. Paper Dragon Art, subscribe with Prime. Socialism or Barbarism gave out 5 community subs. You're wonderful. And Stephen Langlaw subscribed at 1 month at tier 1. And Late Bloomer 66 also resubscribed for 1 month at tier 1. Thank you so much for that support. Let's dance it out. Thank you, Pedro Mac, my producer. Thank you to Maximilian Inhofe and Andy Vasoin, the editor. We stream every Tuesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Follow us on all the things Bituation Room on TikTok and Instagram, and Bituation Pod on Twitter. You can follow me at Franny Fio. And remember to fight the power, to fuck the patriarchy, and to not just bitch about it, but to be about it.